Hey, I'm Adam, founder of Build the Process, and today we're going to take you through our Miro template. This is the template that we use with all of our clients when we go through and first visually map these processes for companies running on EOS. This template follows the 2080 approach, and we've seen quite a bit of success using this level of detail on the visual side of things. So what I want to do is take you through, explain the template, and then show you an example process diagram that we've created that is typically seen for companies running on EOS, this level of detail. What we get a lot of times is questions around what's too much, what's too little, and we're just going to take you through a little bit of that today. So I will put myself out of the way here and talk about it. So as we get into it, you are able to download this template and bring it into your Miro organization. And what we've provided for you are a couple of different resources. Number one up top here, this is just a link to our website where you can find our resource center that has all of what you're seeing here today, in addition to other process materials for companies running on EOS. All of the same material that we use in our paid client engagements, we just want to give out for free so that you could potentially do this yourself if you have the right resources inside your company to do so. So let's take a look at the template. So on our left-hand side here, the first thing I want to draw attention to are the resources that are listed on all of our templates. And number one, that starts with this box up top here. Now that includes a process description, process owner, target completion time, and measurable. These are all things that we want to quickly identify first before we visually map a process with our clients. So we gave you a box there to capture that detailed information and to just keep it in a central location. So what you'll want to do is read these prompts and go ahead and fill that out yourself. The next thing you want to take a look at and think about are the softwares involved in this process. And while that's not necessarily maybe someone's first thought as they go through processes to list the softwares, we find that taking a pause to list these softwares first is going to allow you to remember all of the things that you need to do as it comes to these softwares throughout the process as well. So we like to get those out of the way. You can list those processes here. The next thing that I want to point out is the number of questions that we go through when we pass each task off, as we'll get into in a moment. These are just prompts, nothing to fill out, but you always want to be thinking about who's the person responsible for completing this step. What is the task they're completing? What is the software that is involved at this step? And we're not saying software is involved at every step, but you do want to stay cognizant to say, let's not forget about the software. We have 3 different softwares that touch this process. At each step, do we need to update or do something in each of those softwares? And then on the sending side, number 4 here, what is the information that's being moved? How is it being sent, and to whom is that being sent? So for example, I create a report, I download the PDF, I open an email template, I send it via email to our financial controller. That's just an example of the prompts you want to ask yourself at each one of these tasks. And also, as you go through, we've also provided a number of just easy to copy and paste template boxes here. I'll explain these in a moment, but so you don't have to recreate the wheel yourself visually. This is what we have found to be the simplest way to go about this without creating too much headache or hassle for you. So the couple of things I do want to point out as we get into this is in the process diagram itself, I want to explain a few of these components. Number one being each one of our process starts with a trigger point. So you do want to have this green box and call out what is the action or what triggers this process to start. You can drop that in there. Next, a couple things that are going to catch your eye. The major steps in your process. Major step 1, 2, 3, 4. These boxes that run north-south are the blue boxes to which we call the 20%. So in EOS, they prescribe a 2080 approach to documenting your processes. And so if I zoom out and we imagine that all of these white boxes we're able to suck those all over into these blue boxes and only the blue boxes showed, those blue boxes would account for the 20% of actions that result in 80% of the results. So the blue boxes are really what are to be considered your 20% action items in a process that EOS alludes to as they say how to go about documenting your processes. So as you work with your team, the first thing you're going to want to do is fill out each of these blue boxes. And we call these blue boxes major steps. So, and I'll show you that in an example here shortly, but this is typically the first thing that we do with companies is go through, let's talk it through at a high level. What are the big milestones throughout this process that we need to do? And then kind of go from there. After we get these major steps out of the way, our north-south boxes, we talk about our east-west boxes. These are the subtasks of each major step. And now each subtask is comprised of a couple of different details here, of which I'm going to show you that. So your subtasks are always going to have a subtask owner, or it could be your seat name in your EOS accountability chart. The subtask itself, what is actually happening and being done at this step, and then if any other details or context is needed. So navigate to this, click here, do that. So things like that can go into this as well. Or if you do have additional links or resources that need to be provided, you can link those down below here. But effectively what we want to do is just give a summary of the subtask. And then if you do need to drill down a little bit more, that's totally fine. And one thing that we do want to mention is that while the 2080 approach is fantastic, sometimes it does take a little bit more detail to get you through what you need to do. And so we wanted to give you some detail and room to create that detail as well. So as you can see, we start with our starting point here. We go to our major steps. We map those all out, add our subtasks within, and then all of these steps just continually come down and wrap around until your process ends here. Now, what I want to do is jump over to our actual example, and what we have prepared for you is a sample employee onboarding. And you're going to see a couple other things come into this diagram as well, of which I'll show you that in a moment. But feel free to take some time and familiarize yourself with what we've laid out here from an example standpoint, some of the softwares we listed. But what I want to do is just quickly touch on a couple of things. And as we work with clients that are running on EOS, we identify, document, streamline, which is what I'm going to touch on. Streamline is where these yellow sticky notes come in. So as you're working through this with your team, you get your 20% test, then you work east and west through your subtasks. You might come across some items that say, hey, we could do this better, or can we bring in, for example, an email template here at this point where we send a welcome email, but instead of HR trying to write that themselves and get crafty every time, let's just establish that, right? So action items like that, we like to flag with these sticky notes. And so while you're going through this does not have to be a one and done, get it all out there, it's finished sort of a situation. This is an ongoing effort with your team. And what we love about Miro is that it allows you to collaborate, bring others onto your team as well, get everybody on the board, and everyone can start to sticky note or add what they think is involved in the process. Now, we do recommend the process owner steer and have the final say of what is going to fall into the process, but what you don't want to have is someone on your team do this all by themselves, get no one else's opinion. That is a recipe for a low adoption rate when it comes to documenting processes and having them followed by all, which is a key component of this. So as we go through here, you're documenting and you're streamlining as well. So I'm just going to zoom out and let's just talk through these major steps and then give an example of what would be considered a subtask in addition to how we would streamline this. So the process start, it was that we have an employee who has officially accepted a position at the company. We send a welcome email. We create a personnel file. We complete new hire documentation. We set up their benefits if it's applicable. We set up their software, initiate training protocol, and welcome them on their first day. The process ends from there. So that in itself is really a very high level explanation of your process. Now, to actually get into the weeds a little bit more into the doing of this is great if you want a 30,000 foot view and say, great, Seems like a pretty cut and dry onboarding process, but what actually goes into that? That's where these east-west boxes come in. So now, and when we send the welcome email, this welcome email includes all of these details, and hey, we flagged it as we need to create a template for this. So now that's an action item on someone's radar. We'll come back and address that. As you continue, when you create the personnel file, here's another opportunity too. Create a folder structure in Google Drive if that's where you're keeping your items, to say, hey, this is our filing protocol and here's our naming conventions as well. So as you can see, you can kind of work down through this, and there's no right or wrong way to do this, and don't feel that just because we have ours laid out this way that you have to do it this way. This is where we've seen success with clients running on EOS specifically. They love the simplicity. They like that when it does come time to drill down a little bit more, they have the opportunity to do that. And also on the streamlining standpoint here, you're able to flag these action items so that your team can all get eyes on it, agree, have a conversation around it, discuss, and come to a solution as to how you want to address and streamline some of your processes. So I'll leave it to you there. You can explore this template. We hope that you make it your own. What I'd also encourage you to do is if you do duplicate these frames within this document itself, it'll allow you to continually take this process, build the next one right next to it to keep everything in one place. So we hope this is helpful. We've certainly seen a bit of success using this approach with our companies that we work with, and hope that you're able to take these tools, make it your own, and do it yourself. Thanks.